Welcome, welcome. We are so delighted to welcome you to TPMA's March meetup for this highly anticipated program. So when we do our programming, I'm always trying to tap into what's actually happening sort of in public discourse in the landscape of technology. We're trying to be tactical. We're trying to be valuable. We want people to take things away that they can really use. But we also want to be really, really current because tech is an industry that changes on a daily, if not hourly basis. So there's always something to be watching. And I don't think that that's ever been more true than in our current landscape. Just check out LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's this thing that's kind of come up called AI that has massively disrupted how we're all supposed to live, work, breathe, and sleep. And the question is how much of that is really true? How much has our job as product managers actually changed, and how much of it has stayed the same? And in the Toronto tech landscape, I don't think that there's any company that looms larger than Shopify in this discourse, not least because its venerable CEO likes to make grand statements. And I remember when his letter came out and I read it and it went viral, and there were a lot of people who had hot takes on what it was that it said. But I'm always really curious because I think what happens behind the curtain is very different than usually what is projected to the public. And oftentimes, companies like Shopify and Amazon and all of the big fan companies, it's kind of like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. A lot of things go in, very little except product comes out. Because everybody's so sucked into the vortex of what's happening at these companies, we don't get a lot of public discourse around what happens. So I wanted to see if we could kind of get some insight. And I'm really, really excited about our speaker, who I will be introducing momentarily. But I am just really excited to see what questions come out of you and what comes out of this discussion tonight. So before we do that, a few admin and housekeeping items. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. So about TPMA, it is Canada's longest running product community, dedicated to supporting GTA's product managers for over 20 years. We are a registered not-for-profit. We are fully run by volunteers. Our board is all volunteer, and every dime we make gets plowed back into programming and value for our members. We want to thank BrainStation. Mitch, you want to come up and say a few words?
Awesome. Thanks, Rosemary. And you guys are in store for a really great event this evening. Just want to say a quick few words. First, my name's Mitchell Savage. I'm a manager here at BrainStation. Just by a quick show of hands, who's here at BrainStation for the very first time? Okay, a lot of hands. Who's been in BrainStation before? Even more hands. And who's taken a course or program here? You alumni. Awesome. Well, welcome back. As a refresher, and for those of you that are new here, BrainStation is the global leader in AI and digital skills training. We work with individuals and professionals like yourself in equipping them and training them across the digital spectrum, including data, AI, product design, as well as marketing. We also work with industry-leading organizations to ensure that their teams are well equipped with the digital skills to be successful in today's economy. Outside that, we run and host hundreds of our own events. So I highly recommend taking a quick look at our website to see our upcoming events. I know for a fact we have tons of product ones happening in April. One final thing I want to say, BrainStation itself, we were founded here in Toronto 14 years ago, and our core mission then still remains true today. We are a hub for innovation. We want individuals, practitioners, and leaders to come together, have conversations to push ideas forward. And that's exactly why we open up our space to a really amazing community groups such as the TPMA to do that exact thing, have conversations about industries, disciplines, products specifically. If anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, that QR code in the top left or top right takes you directly to my page. I would love to connect with any of you in the room. If you want to chat more about BrainStation, have any questions, feel free to send over a connection request. Other than that, you're in store for a really great event. Thank you so much for being here at BrainStation, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Mitch. We love BrainStation, and it is an incredible resource. And I know a lot of people who are instructors and who have done programs there, so highly recommend checking it out. Also, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Rosemary, the events chair at TPMA, and I'm also a product consultant and fractional CPO. I was so excited about the program. Next up is Bisbee. We're always looking for member perks, setting up sponsorships and special partnerships for our members. So our TPMA members, I believe, get 3 months free on the Bisbee Team Plus plan. So if you snap that QR code, you can redeem that offer. And we love Bisbee. Raise your hand if you're a volunteer. Volunteers? Hello, couple. So we are entirely volunteer-run organization. If you are interested in volunteering and getting involved in TPMA, talk to one of our volunteers or Hannah, who is our events coordinator in the back of the room, or chat with me. I'll probably send you to Hannah. But we are always looking for more people to get involved, and it's a great way of creating community and a great way of giving back. And then eventually that community usually ends up giving back to you at some point as well. So this is our full list of volunteers that work with us on a month-by-month event on all the different things that we do, including our upcoming conference. So any community builders in here? Couple? Nice. So community builders are a tier of membership that I believe costs $30 a year, which is nothing. And every community builder gets 25% off all events and programs. And this includes workshops that sometimes are now sort of heading into the few $100 mark, and our conference ticket, which is, I believe, a couple $100. And so the $30 a year really, really ends up quickly paying for itself if you're interested in joining us at any of those types of events. And it also means that you're supporting an organization that's really just dedicated to giving back to the community. Coming up, we have a lot coming up. We've got our April in-person meetup, which is going to be all about what product managers need to know about working with engineering in the age of vibe coding. This is still an evolving program. I've got a couple of speakers that I'm chatting with in the coming days, so we'll be finalizing and rolling out that final speaker program next week. But I am really excited about this one. I think it's going to be incredibly useful and also dispel a lot of myths about what's happening between product and engineering right now. We also really want to encourage folks to talk about what they hear and take away from these events. I think so often in this room, everybody walks out and goes, that was so great. And then if you weren't here, you kind of just missed it. So what we want to do is we want to encourage and understand what your key takeaways were. So if you post something that stuck with you tonight, an insight that you found really useful, a quote that really resonated with you, and you tag at TPMA and myself, you will be entered to win 2 tickets to the upcoming TPMA or Product TO meetup. So, because we just want to understand, what was valuable for you? What was the key takeaway? And just get a sense of that. So please do post your insights. Then we have Toronto Product Con, which is coming up in May. Tickets are now on sale, although you have missed the early bird. But I'm really excited about this event. I think it's going to be huge. I know the speaker list is continuing to roll out, and some of the speakers that are currently on there are really phenomenal. So we hope that you make it here. This is our Slido. So I would love for everybody to take a shot of this, please, right now. This is how I'm going to be registering your questions in the Q&A. And if you're not taking a picture of it right now, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. Okay? Did everyone get it? A few more seconds. We want participation. You'll be sad if you have a great question and then you can't submit it. Okay, amazing. That is all of our admin. And now on to the main show. I am incredibly excited to introduce our speaker, Keith. Keith was connected to me by an old friend of mine called Tony, who's a design leader at Shopify. Again, it's sort of difficult to connect with people inside the fortress. So I had to sort of use my personal connections to get an intro, but I'm so happy that it worked out. Keith and I, kind of got together and brainstormed and really riffed on, what we want this evening to be, and some of the ideas that he really wants to transmit to you. So I'm really, really excited to hear from him. Keith is a staff product manager at Shopify, where he leads product strategy for payments infrastructure. He's got a long history in payment systems, and he helped build the financial rails that power millions of merchants worldwide. Known for bridging regulatory complexity with practical budget thinking, Keith brings a system level discipline to payments and balances technical precision with merchant and buyer experience. He's passionate about the intersection of fintech infrastructure, emerging payments, and the future of commerce. So without further ado, welcome Keith Dell to the stage.
Thank you. All right. Oh, I need the clicker, I think. Oh, I left it behind. Sorry. All right. Thank you so much for that, Rosemary. Okay. Hello. I haven't been up in front of a group of people presenting like this in a long time. We work remote, so this is new for me. So forgive my shakes a little bit. Oh, it vibrates. That's new. Okay. So we're talking about how AI has changed PM work. And I'm going to preface this by saying Shopify is just one place. We probably have around 250 PMs. And if they were up here giving this presentation, about 80% of it would be different. So you're not hearing, this is how it exactly is. This is how everyone does it. This is literally just how I've been adapting to working at Shopify post AI has come in full swing. And one of the ways that it's really changed the way I feel about the role is it's changed the amount that I'm spending energy on like assembling information, and has really empowered me to make more decisions and help other people make more decisions much quicker and with much richer information, because it doesn't take it, and we'll get into it, but it doesn't take as much effort to put the right context in the right place. All right, so a little bit more about myself. I've been doing payments products specifically for about 10 years. Before Shopify, I worked at FreshBooks and Bell before that. So again, I say this to reiterate because I know that there's a lot of product management is a craft. It's not necessarily a one size fits all job. Like most other jobs that we try to explain to our parents, like product is a really tough one. But knowing where I come from, it helps show that hey, this is just a sliver. But what I work on is making sure the merchants who are on Shopify as a platform get paid. That anytime you make a sale, either through Shop Pay or just on a merchant's checkout that's not Amazon, that the money actually lands in that merchant's bank account effectively, cheap, and on time, which is really what they care about. All right, so back more so to Shopify and sort of the timeline of things for those that may have not read the letter, or just this timeline's pretty quick. Late 2024, we heard rumblings of AI, and I had ChatGPT myself and was playing with it. And I think the first thing I did was write my impact review or someone's 360 using ChatGPT, but it was the early version, and it was really bad. I felt like, okay, this is helpful, but it's not very good. Then by early 2025, Shopify started being really intentional. We started having internal tools that were empowering us to use not just ChatGPT, but a full suite of Anthropic and the names are escaping me, but X and all the other vendors, just through a centralized suite. So again, Shopify is very intentional in making sure we have these tools, and we're doing so in a way that's safe for our merchants' information. So we very quickly were making sure that we're only accessing AI assisted tools through a singular entry point, so that we can make sure that we weren't giving ChatGPT anyone's merchant volume or any personal information. So we started really early with that. And then in 2025, the letter that many of you have read came out, and panic for myself, for sure, being I'm a non-technical PM. I say I'm very technical when it comes to payments, but I've never really shipped a whole bunch of code in my life. And all of a sudden I'm being told in that letter, you're going to be shipping code. I couldn't bridge that gap. How am I actually going to be doing that, and when, and who's going to teach me? And yikes. But then sort of the what's come out of it, and we'll get into more of it, is commerce itself. We hear the term agentic commerce, we hear the term agentic payments, and it's still very much on the forefront. But if you were to open up the Shopify admin as a merchant, you would actually, I would be proud to say, you're actually going to feel like AI is assisting in a very intentional way the way in which you're operating your store. One of the benefits of having a closed ecosystem of commerce, the commerce platform, is we're able to very much structure the information and structure the tailor how you're interacting with AI so that it has really high rich context. If you've ever opened up ChatGPT and asked it just like a question with like one sentence and it's kind of like really off the mark, well, that's because it's working off of like really abstract context. But with your store, if you ask it like, how much money did I make? It knows what the term money means in that context, and it can give you rich information, then show you where in the admin to go. So all to say, the product has really come a long way, and it's very well powered by AI. But that doesn't mean you as a consumer is seeing like anything very different. You know, I don't think. I mean, raise your hands if you bought something through ChatGPT like storefronts. That's not what Twitter would tell me. Twitter would tell me like everyone's like buying things agentically. Yeah, exactly. Cool. So again, I'm most of this is going to be for questions because I think it's less important about exactly what Shopify does and more for you to hear like how I've adapted. And then I also want to hear like how can you like questions do you have so you can tailor it to the experience that you're actually in? Because again, Shopify is just one vantage point, and I think most companies and most individuals are not coming from that same vantage point. So it's not super helpful just to hear this is how we do it at Shopify. But what's changed for us so far, and what's changed for me? Wow, there's so much information. Company of like 8,000 people. There's Slack is going like crazy. There's like I think my team probably has 10 projects that they're contributing to. And before AI, that meant my eyeballs were doing a lot of reading like a lawyer to just keep up. Because if my boss comes to me and asks me how any of my projects are doing, I can't be like, oh, I got to go read the update from last week. Like I had to have already read the update. Today, that's come a long way. I'm able to like, and I'll go into it in more detail, but I'm able to just open up my own Claude code and just ask questions that I've prepared every week. So I know like the TLDR of every project just at my fingertips. And I think it's a really standard practice across product managers at Shopify that the tools are there for you to do that. And it's expected that you're able to keep up with that. It's all also enabled by like the auto-generated status reporting. I was sharing earlier, one of the great tools that we have is that when you are working on a project, every Friday, you get a message. Here's a pre-generated script of like what AI thinks your project has done this week. It takes all your Slack messages and says, this is what you've done, right? And you're like, not really. You didn't fully get it. So then you edit it. You spend about an extra 10, 20 minutes editing the summary, but it's much richer than you would have done if it was by yourself. Because as a PM, sometimes like raise your hand if you've never actually understood what your engineer said, but like you reported on it. You're kind of like, oh yeah, they said they did that. I don't know if they did because I can't find out. Well, now you have that sort of more AI assistant to like pull that information and actually be able to click through and find out, oh, it's referencing this PR. And I can go and find that PR and actually like not have to ask the question because there's nothing better than not having to ask questions to feel silly asking them. But anyway, and then the last thing that I found most impactful more recently is that over the past year, I've personally built a fairly big knowledge management tool. And what's enabled is when a finance stakeholder versus a UX stakeholder is asking me the same question, can take the information I already have and tailor it to them very quickly. I could go through in detail, but I've literally created personas of every single user of the stakeholders, meaning UX, finance, engineering, to make sure that it knows how do they like to be spoken to, what's important to them. And I didn't write these personas, right? I didn't sit and just like start like spend hours. Like I had Claude help create it over time and edit it over time. But yes, the long story short is it sounds like a lot of work, but it is like it pays in dividends because you're able to do repeated tasks in much shorter amounts of time. All right. What teams are actually building? So these are some examples. I'm going to pull over side just so I can make sure I touch on them all. So engineers, what have I seen engineers do? Engineers have been able to, like, instead of product having to be like hands-on in every project, they're able to take smaller projects and vibe code what a product manager would have eventually done. Because sometimes there's like a little bit of overhead when you're creating a project, being like, okay, the PM needs to write the PRD. Not really. Sometimes you don't really need a PM to spend time PM PRD because your engineers are actually quite talented and they're excellent. They understand the product. And so they can quickly draft a PRD. They can reduce the amount of like back and forth and waiting for somebody else. So that's something that's become very common. Jargon, that's the example with like UX versus finance. It's very easy now to quickly transition from space to space and with the same context. I've gone through the exercise of having one PRD or product brief as we call them, and have the UX version and the finance version very quickly drafted instead of having to like that like cold start problem. Like, okay, what am I actually trying to like say here? And you're like, that's going to take me 20 minutes and then I'm going to grab a coffee. Now, at least you have something on paper that you can edit and you move much quicker as a result. Another great thing that we see across Shopify now is how many people use Looker or like those dashboarding tools and like any sort of like financial dashboard tool. Terrifying. It's always felt like you need a data scientist to actually pull data. And so today that's gone away. Data science now spends most of their time making sure data is normalized, making sure that it is accurate and that it is queryable. And by queryable, I mean not with SQL, but by having skills inside of Claude that know and understand the data that we have, so that when you ask a question, it has enough context to help me pull out that information and then just make a dashboard on the fly. So it's not spending a week's time of a data scientist who's like, Keith, that's a really simple query. And you're like, I know, but like, I don't trust myself and I'm scared. To now it's like, okay, I trust that the data science team has put together proper skills in Claude Code and have normalized the data appropriately. And I can just ask a plain language question and then visualize it, look at it and go, does that make sense? Do I even think that I'm on the right path? If I'm on the right path, then I go. If I'm not on the right path, I go, data science person, help. But you've done a whole bunch more work by yourself and you've probably learned along the way. Wait, did I ask this question properly? Do I need to go and figure out what the difference between profit and gross profit is? Maybe I do, before you go and waste the time of a data scientist. Yes, and another example that we have, and this is something that was really shocking to me and I learned a lot about in the past 2 weeks, is it's called, I'm going to use the right word, judging. So when you interact with a chatbot on any sort of product, and like I see this a lot of like customer support chatbots, you ask it a question, and you're like, you didn't answer my question. Like, this is your product. I can read your help docs better than this AI chatbot can answer this question. That's embarrassing. But what we're now doing at Shopify, and I know that many other companies are doing this as well, is it's actually product's job to train the chatbot. What will happen is if you launch a new product or you are working on a product and you're like, hey, we're getting a lot of support tickets for, in my world, it's like, when is my payout coming? Okay, simple question should be like, okay, when's it coming? But if it tells you, hey, it's coming, that's a really bad answer. Someone needs to tell it that it's a bad answer. So that's actually part of our job now, is to help train in these chatbots to say that's a bad answer. And if you can't figure out what a good answer is, then we haven't given you the right information. We haven't given you the right skills as the chatbot. So therefore the quality bar skill number goes low, and the product team is notified that we have to work on the chatbot's responses for that product set. Okay, that's the Shopify specific stuff. How do I use it? I've touched on this a little bit, but I have, and my primary thing is I have a second brain. Has anyone heard of the second brain concept? Okay. I'll explain it. So the second brain is basically just a knowledge management tool. The way I use it, and you can go on GitHub and find, just like Google search basically GitHub and find tons of repos of people who've created these products. But effectively what it is just a knowledge management tool. Every day I have a note created that I can then edit, that pulls in from my Slack, from my Google Drive, from any transcript that I've had throughout the day. What happened? What do I have to do? What changed? What decision was made? And for the most part, I don't really look at it. But the one time that I need to look at it, hey, when did Sam say that they were going to do this? Or when did my boss say, or what was my boss's opinion about that? That's when it becomes extremely useful. So it's a fantastic tool that is basically a amalgamation of MCPs to Slack, to Google Drive, to our internal knowledge base, and start just pulling in the information that I've asked of it. And now I have my own knowledge base. I have my own like assistant of sorts that doesn't produce anything automatically. I don't have it like post things for me. I don't have it acting like me. It's not an agent, but it is something that I trust, that is in my context to help me answer questions. So when that question comes in on Slack and I'm like, oh, I've answered this 10 times, or I don't really want to answer this long-winded question, but they really need the details. And it's not fair for me not to give them all that information. I now have a repository where I can be like, here's the question. Here's what I need this person to understand. Can you draft a detailed explanation answer? And now that's something that I would have just like put off until the end of the day or the next day that I can fire off in 2 minutes and my team is able to run. That's the big one. And then on top of that is my weekly review. This is great for your impact reviews, keeping track of time. AI is not going to do that for you. So keeping a log in my second brain of what I've done in a week and not having to fill it out myself is better than I've ever done before. I think we've all made plans. Every time you have the impact review season, like, okay, next time I'm going to write down my goals for every day. Right. And you're like, okay, I made this really great like checkbox and like to-do list, and I'm going to keep track of it and I'm going to hold myself accountable. There you go. And so this is one of the primary uses I have every day. All right. So what's new about the product craft? Again, product craft is different in different places, but it used to be that like our job was to know the most about your product. It used to be that you had to be in every room, you had to be in every meeting, and it used to be that you basically had to type the fastest. Everyone needed to hear from you. Again, a remote environment, a lot of typing, a lot of Google Meets. Today, I find that the craft has changed. We're able to curate context. You're able to grab context from more sources. And because you're the expert in your product, you've spoken to the most users, you're able to be the judge of whether or not what's relevant. And pulling that information means I can speak to 1,000 merchants instead of just one in a day. Now, it's not as depthful, it's not as rich, and it doesn't replace having a conversation with a merchant. But it means that you're able to find those patterns and figure out which merchant do I need to talk to next, because I'm able to able to synthesize much quicker. Design specifications, something I couldn't do before that I've done more recently than with the assistance of AI is, hey, engineer it. Here's my product requirements document, but also here's a little bit more that'll help you get going, because it's able to read the APIs of Shopify. It's able to understand the context of Shopify. Here's where it feels like you should be extending it. So our conversation can start as like PM to engineer a bit further down the journey. And it means that I've also been spending time understanding their world a bit more. I understand our current state better and how the new state that I want us to move into is meeting with the state we're currently at. Institutional memory, as I mentioned, and focus on judgment. That is the key that I think it transcends product management, which is like, has anyone tried to have AI do their taxes? I know we're really close to that. No one's tried. Really? Okay, I tried. It was really bad. And I was like, wait a second, like tax code, it's like literally written out. It's like the best markdown file there is. And it was terrible. It was completely wrong. Anyways, my point is that's the skill. The skill is that you're the judge of what good looks like. You're the judge of how your user's actually going to use it. You're the one that has to translate those requirements to engineers and to UXers and to the data team and the finance team, because as fast as Shopify has moved in leveraging AI and how all these teams have access to the same tools I have, the relationship with our peers, my connected teams being finance and so on, hasn't changed. They still rely on product for the same thing they've always relied on product for, and I still rely on them for the same thing that they've always relied on me. The difference is that we're able to move faster, we're able to speak to each other a bit more efficiently, and honestly, like, we're able to create products that are more dynamic as a result, because we can communicate more effectively. Without getting too much in the weeds of that, like, payments is boring. You won't really care about payments. So when I go and work with my finance team, I'm like, let me tell you about this new protocol that is coming. And it's like, it's going to cost a different amount for our merchants to receive payout. Like, Keith, I really don't care. Just tell me how much it costs. I'm like, I really think if you understood the foundation of what this change is, you'd be better at your job. You'd be better at working with me. And so now that you're able to leverage AI to translate what I'm trying to say to someone in a different discipline, we're meeting each other much more halfway than we were in the past, because they can receive the information a bit more clearly. All right, so four things to take away. Writing is the new coding. Like words are what everyone is coding with. So it's not about being a great writer. I'm a terrible writer, but writing in the written word is extremely important. It is what pushes your teams forward. It's what pushes the code forward. So writing is the new coding from my vantage point. I highly recommend a personal AI system. They're proliferating throughout Shopify. Everyone's doing it their own way. There's no one way to do it. It's basically like how you organize your closet. It's your way. No one else is gonna organize the closet like you are, and no one's gonna. It's not gonna be efficient. But figure out how you want to organize your thoughts so that you can recall on them and you can use them as leverage later. And yeah, the role is deepening and not just widening. What that means again is I'm going deeper with each team, going deeper with my engineers, deeper with the designers. I now know how our design system works because I now have access to manage it myself with our internal tools, and I can work closer with the designer and speak closer to their language because I have more time. I have less time working on updates, more time actually working with UXers. And yeah, speed without context is extremely dangerous. I think I caution running off of any information that's driven right from AI. Any product requirement document full of M dashes terrifies me. Not that it's wrong, not that it's not right, but it gives me that first like, has someone read this? Has someone actually made sure that this is right and they just didn't get to the done and send it off? So then that's the craft. The product craft is the context. Yeah. So.
Okay, we're gonna come over here. We're gonna turn off this really crazy uh screen situation and we're gonna have a chat. The questions, thank you all. I'm very pleased, came in fast and furious. Um hey Bill, could you turn off the Yeah, I mean, okay. So it's a little blue. Maybe we could get a little AV support for Bill up here while we start the questions. I have a couple that I sort of pre-planned, and then we've got a long list to get into. But the first thing that I really want to know, and that was just as I really wanted to hear you just break it down as simply as possible. And I think you did a really beautiful job of that. It's like, what does this actually mean? Where are their gains? But when work at a big company, you know, your boss is a guy who loves sort of, big statements. When the letter first came out and it was like, okay, like you have to justify why you cannot do this with AI before we are going to add any headcount. What was the general feeling and sentiment internally? Like, how did people feel about it?
I mean, I've been there for 7 years, and it's not the first time that we've had a big event. I will use COVID as an example. The moment COVID happened, literally the next day, he came on and said, all your roadmaps are changing, everything's changing. Get over it and help us and help move. So I think from that vantage point, I had a lot of trust in that, like we'd figure this out, but I was terrified. Yeah, because at that point, I think that what he was seeing and what I was seeing were two different things, and I was only really seeing ChatGPT like most average people, and therefore didn't really know what it meant.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what it meant, and it happened very quickly where demos started to happen.
Yeah.
That still didn't feel like they were relevant to me.
Right.
And so it was a good period of time to be like,
yeah.
What?
So when did it feel like it started to become relevant for you?
When MCPs came out.
Okay, say more.
So an MCP is like the MCP server is basically an API that gives you access to information. And so when we first started with this AI revolution at Shopify, it was mostly tailored towards developers. I mean, like it was built for developers by developers. And I was like, I still haven't found my use case other than writing impact reviews for people by helping me synthesize some data. And this was before I was really even good at that. So then once we had MCP servers, which meant that I could hook up my Slack or my Google Calendar, or my Google, whatever, all of it, and be like, oh, I can ask it questions.
Yeah.
I can start to ask it like, what was this topic about? Help me learn what this developer was even really referring to, so I don't have to ask a silly question in public. That's what it started with.
Yeah. So this MPC sort of acted as the centralized point where you could start hooking in the systems so that you could start building your knowledge repository.
Right. So what the way it would work is if you're using something like Cloud Code or Cursor, you can say, hey, start having access to everything inside my Slack or everything inside of Google. So you can start asking it context-aware questions. Ask it, what did I do yesterday? It can go and understands to say, hey, Slack, these are the dates of the messages. What did he do yesterday? And to come up with an answer.
Yeah. So does that replace your need to have a GitHub then?
Does it replace my need to have a GitHub?
Do you have a GitHub? That's all.
I mean, I have a GitHub.
You do.
I have not pushed a lot of commits.
Yeah,
in
okay, yeah.
our code. So it's not. I honestly, it's made it so I've shipped more code than I ever have
Yeah.
because of
that centralized
the
system.
centralized
The
system. It's
MCP.
also hey, here's some plain language about something I want to change on either the admin or support docs, and it goes through all the buttons that kind of scare me inside GitHub. And it clicks them for you, and
Yeah.
the guardrails are there so
Yeah.
that you don't ship something that's going to break.
Yeah. So that really kind of answers a big question, which are like, what were your setup steps? And so it sounds like Shopify really kind of created a system that allowed you to hook into it a little bit.
Yes,
More
they created
easily?
it, but I think, I mean, if you're in product, your job is to be curious.
Yeah.
So I think that as soon as I learned about the fact that you could connect like Slack to Claude, I went, okay, how? I very much remember sitting on YouTube going, MCP, question mark, send to YouTube, and like explain it to me because it made no sense to me. And then going, oh, okay, what can I do with this? And
Yeah.
that's always our job as product people. Be like, okay, what can I do? What do I have a problem that needs to be solved?
Yeah.
Oh wait, I absolutely do because I hate reading all my Slack. How can I solve that problem?
Yeah.
And I also like remember sitting there going, before we had all these MCPs, I was like, why can't it just take all my meeting notes, all the meeting transcripts, and like summarize it for me? And this is before we had the MCP, so I was literally sitting on like app scripts or applet, what I don't know if anyone knows this word, but it's like the thing you can automate, old thing you can automate Google with, whereas having it email to me my Google Meet transcripts and then trying to have Claude like suck them up and like start to curate them. And so I knew I had a problem that I wanted to solve, and then eventually the tools sort of
Yeah.
came.
I just tried to set up that workflow between Notion and Claude, and it's having trouble finding my raw transcripts from when I'm recording them. So I'm like, I need to figure this out. But
It's magic
yeah.
when you can figure it out. When Claude breaks, gee, I mean, everyone that works with it knows that you spend 2 hours feeling like the silliest person in the world.
Yep.
With your Claude not working, your cursor not working.
Yeah. But I mean, what the future, which is happening every second, every day, there are more skills and more automated ways. And it's essentially, I think in 6 months, all of these things that PMs need to do there'll be automatic setup workflows in place.
And there already are. Like, I mean, the way it works, two months ago, I think I was setting up, and if you don't know what Claude skill is, it's basically just a markdown file that is repeated instructions. And let's say that my finance team has a couple of them that they use and say like, hey Keith, if you want to pull like average revenue per user, here's the skill that makes sure you're doing it properly with our data set. It used to be that I'd have to like copy and paste it into my setup, and then if they updated it, I'd have to like go and re-copy and paste it, which just seemed crazy. And now they've built tools so that it's just happening automatically.
Yeah.
In the background.
Yeah.
So a lot of the challenges are going away because it's going from a tool that's for developers by developers to by developers for us.
Yeah.
And the rest of us.
Yeah. Yeah. There's going to be, I think, I mean, actually, I'm now a fractional product role at a company that's working on creating really simple, like one button click systems for PMs so that we don't have to do this anymore. Because why bother?
But so I'll challenge the why bother.
Sure.
And the why bother is just like any product we're working on, without the context of how it works, or at least enough, you don't know like, oh, it's not working. Why? Like, or, oh, what else could it do that's not perfectly placed in front of me? Like, what's in the advanced settings that if I just open that up, I would go, wow, that's super helpful. If I wouldn't know that if you just abstract away all of the complexity as product people, at least in my role as a staff PM, it's really important that I know the details so that I can say, hey, there's something I want to pull forward.
Yeah.
That the engineer didn't think was important, but I.
So you mentioned in our sort of pre-talk chat that you consider yourself kind of on the lower range of technical. Do you feel like you've been pushed to become a little bit more technical in the last year?
Well, yeah, and more technical because I think one of the biggest hurdles I have was saying I don't want to ask that stupid question. I feel stupid, and like my engineer's time is like really valuable, and like without using my weekend to like learn a whole bunch of stuff that maybe I do or don't work, felt like when's the time? Now I can ask that dumb question, and it has the context of a code base, it has the context of like, internet, and I can self-teach in a way that fits better for me. Like I don't have the attention span to sit and watch a YouTube video for 2 hours. Some people can do that, and well, I'm much better with the like I'm just keep asking questions and keep following it down a path like I'm learning from a tutor.
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, because
Amazing.
I've had the tools better for
Yeah.
it.
So you mentioned that at Shopify, everybody's kind of setting up their own systems. How do you guys share with each other? And then has that ever created friction?
We share. We have like very well built sharing tools. What I mean by that is if I want to create something, I can very quickly share and deploy it, like without having to know what I'm even really saying right now. I can say, here's a tool I've created in my world. I created a tool probably 4 months ago now that said, the way payouts work is really boring, but I'm gonna explain it real quick, so bear with me. Charge happens, and then like it takes like 2 or 3 days for that money to actually exist to go to the merchant, and that's really boring. And what I just said is super boring, but it's really important for what we're trying to build. And everyone's eyes would glaze over when I tried to, like everyone's just did. And I was like, I have to make this easier to understand. So I was able to like within 3 hours with all the documentation I have, just like created a WYSIWYG tool that said, okay, if it's Monday, when is this money going to exist? Why doesn't it show up this day? Oh, well, there's a holiday and banks are closed. That's weird, but like it's a fact, and I needed people to understand it. So I was able to create this tool and then just deploy it into an internal website that everyone does. And so yes, that's become easier, and the company's done a really good job of saying knowledge bases, not personal knowledge bases, but Shopify's knowledge base is central. So if I'm trying to talk about product in a specific place, does anyone have access to my knowledge base? No, and that's also probably a problem. That hey, if I'm creating this rich context around how payouts work, and I go on holiday for a week, wouldn't it be smart if someone could just at Keith in Slack and it would pull from my knowledge base? Probably. Good idea.
Yeah. Virtual Keith. We love it.
I mean, someone might. I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna get to the questions because there are actually a ton in here. So, for Mark Rabo, how has Toby adjusted his view of AI since the letter? I.e., what has the time since shown or taught him? Do you hear from Toby regularly?
I can't speak.
Like not
for,
personally,
yeah,
but
can't speak that. But what I do know is that I mean he's very, and I think accurately, like it's solving a lot of problems for velocity, and it's solving a lot of problems for like I think he posted on Twitter recently about a code base that I think he basically wrote Liquid that he ran it's called auto search on it and was able to make it I think 30% faster than he himself I think who was the original author of that code was able to do. So I think he's finding proof points that it is extremely valuable. But at the same time, I think there was a question like, are people still valuable? And like what's going on there? And I obviously can't speak to anything other than in my world around me, as I mentioned, the roles and responsibilities of the different crafts that I work with are all still fully intact. Like we all still work with each other and need each other. We're just able to work differently. As for his view on that,
well, that actually extends really well into this next question, also from Mark Rabo. Does work feel faster? If so, is it continuing to accelerate? And do you think humans will become the limiting factor?
it is absolutely moving faster. I've said it a couple times to friends who've asked me is that I've probably never had more fun like at a day at work because I'm doing less things that I don't like to do. I would say that it also does add on a layer of like stress because you're doing a lot of the like hard things all the time. But are humans the limiting factor? I mean, this is super philosophical, but like we are the limiting factor insofar as like at the end of the day, at least on our product, without humans, there's nothing to buy. There's no merchants. There's no cycle of commerce. So I don't know what a humanless version.
Now that I think about that question, it's like humans have always been the limiting factor.
Humans have always been the limiting factor of what? I think
Yeah,
it's,
like, yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, but I had this conversation the other day. I think uh, it's really good ideas are pretty rare. And actually sometimes like slowness of development is helpful to organizations because it means that they have some time to step back and be like, does anyone want this? Is this solving a problem? Um, what I've found in my career is that it's the misalignment, miscommunications, lack of clear goals and vision that prevent organizations from being able to cohesively move forward. Um, and I think as development continues to speed up, that's going to be triply true. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think again, this is very Shopify centered, but one of the tools that we have at our disposal that like Shopify uses is we have a single like in-house built project management tool that is very purpose built for that exact problem. Toby, he sits every 6 weeks and reviews every project so that yes,
Okay.
yeah, I've been in that room. That happens, and so yeah, he like spends a lot of time making sure that that problem is mitigated as much as possible by him seeing, are we working on the thing that he expected us to be working on 6 weeks ago? If it took longer, having some accountability for it from the leaders of each team, because of that problem. And I'm not saying the problem still doesn't exist; it absolutely exists. But systems are important, and AI has helped because every 6 weeks having to go through a review like that's a lot of work just to prepare for. And so having a system that's already automated, like I said, my projects are automatically updated every week so that like, hey, if I want to go back and see like what I've done week over week, I know that there's there's content there for me to look back on without me having to have sat there and type it, which means, hey, maybe my context isn't as high as it should be, but there's a give and take there.
I mean, I imagine like pre this type of AI system, it would have been incredibly arduous to put those types
Yes.
of presentations together for Toby,
Yes.
right? Like a lot of your time would be spent updating him.
Yeah.
Because the context that he would need in order to really understand would be huge.
And now the tool is able to follow the life cycle of the project. It knows what is shipped. It knows what day it is. It'll prompt you to be. It'll say like, "Hey, you said you're going to be done today. You're not. Why?" Add that context in so that it's there when you need it.
Do you feel like that's changed how conversations with Toby go?
I wouldn't have enough like face to face to say, but I think that it's the what's expected of every leader at Shopify is to be in the weeds. So VPs of product are like they are deep in the context, the technical and problem context. Like my VP will ask me very specific, good questions about why something's delayed because at the end of the day, Toby might ask him in that review, and we're all accountable to it.
Yeah. Oh, scary. Woo.
It's scary, but like
Yeah.
that's why I said like having so much context at your disposal that's
Yeah.
well documented.
Yeah.
It helps.
No, it would, I mean, yeah, that's the dream,
Yeah.
right? Absolutely. I love this question. How do you ensure alignment when engineers write their own PRDs? How do you maintain accountability?
Oh my god, I'm reading them, and nothing's better. Like I'm like, oh my god, that's so fun. Yeah, like you're first of some they're basically doing part of your job, but doing it better than you ever would. Yeah, you're reading them, and you're reading them and going, wow, that's completely wrong. What assumption do they have that it makes any sense? And then you have a really good conversation with them because you're starting to say like, where are you coming from?
Yeah.
Why are you on a different page?
Yeah.
And
What'd you miss?
yeah,
Yeah.
and why?
Were
And
you
that's
having
my
off today?
well, it's I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, are you?
Yeah.
What do you?
Has
What,
that happened
yeah.
to you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And in my world, it's because hey, like payments is a very, like what did Visa change last week? Like that happens,
Yeah.
and so it may change it. Like and making sure that information is disseminated at the right level, the right people is hard.
Yeah.
Sure.
This has become like a really regular drumbeat of a comment. And I feel like it's worthwhile to kind of like stop and highlight it, which is you read them, you review the work that AI does. Like that's not ever going to change.
It's so embarrassing
It's
when
embarrassing.
you let AI do it for you.
And literally don't read it. Like anybody in here, if you are having AI generate work that's your name is going to be on,
You wrote it.
you wrote it.
And this has come down from like our leadership has said this like on the engineering side I heard a quote from our VP or CTO like AI doesn't ship code. You like a human ships the code. A human's responsible for the code being shipped at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's not changing.
Yeah. Yeah. A human review of every single thing that AI generates, whether it's a rough draft. But I heard an interesting allegory the other day, which is it's a sandwich. It's you, then AI, then you. You should always try to start by producing the first thing because that's your voice and it's your ideas. What do you think of that?
So absolutely.
Yeah.
The my hack for it, if you haven't tried this, is voice to text. It's super like awful to listen to someone do it, but when I leave a meeting and I'm like, okay, if I didn't get it transcribed or if I had a thought, I'll do it on my watch and they have a double click to do a voice memo and just verbal diarrhea, like this thought that I had, because it's gonna be way better as an input to an AI than whatever I type a couple hours later when I come back to the thought.
It's a great hack.
Yeah, just sit there and verbal diarrhea into a chatbot about like, oh, this is sort of what I'm thinking. This is sort of like, oh, it's kind of awkward to phrase it that way. You need to think of a better way. That's not really making sense. And just like have it be your like script or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I do a lot of talking to my screen and I'll just talk and talk and talk. And then I find that it's not listening to me. And then I have to start again. And it's never as good the second time. I'm never as brilliant as I was the first time.
But more words in any prompt are better.
Yeah.
Not that's not an infinite amount, but say more when you want good responses. Give it a lot of context and structure. It doesn't have to be well spelled. It doesn't have to be well formatted because it doesn't really care. It just needs to really know what you're trying to get across, or else it's gonna create garbage.
On the one of the challenges I see, not so much writing or my consumption, the collectible inputs, but customer research, validation.
Absolutely.
In the examples that I've had where they've done this, that wasn't where the parity was coming from. It's more when we're taking a product and moving it just like expanding into a new country or doing something that's like a repetitive task that now just needs like the artifact so that we can make sure they're doing the thing. If it is like full on insight discovery, then no, I would not ask them to do that. They could because they've access to all the same information I have. But that's probably not the best use of their talent.
Well, and I think that you guys should come to the next week because the guy who I was talking to, who's going to be one of our speakers, Andrew, was talking about how in this age, context and being able to give context to engineers and have them participate in that type of in-depth research for something as big as like a new product launch is going to be really crucial. How does that work at Shopify? Do engineers participate?
I've had engineers participate, and a lot of it has to do with sharing. Like one of the best parts of AI is it's much easier to share synthesized information. So, for example, customer research takes a lot of time still.
Yeah.
But now if an engineer wants to understand customer sentiment, there's a skill in Claude for that, where it's attached to all of the customer interaction. So they can, in their workflow, in the way that they like to be communicated to, find that information. Whereas in the past, there's like, okay, so do they even know we have a UXR team, a user experience researching team that has like a Google Drive folder somewhere? Like there's just like you had to know things in order to find things, whereas now you don't necessarily have to know things, you have to have questions, and it can start showing you where to start looking.
Yeah. No, that is the dream. I remember being at Spotify, and they had an incredible UXR team, and we would have 90 decks that would have relevant information. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, I can't wait for the day that I can just ask somebody, like, find every relevant slide that has
Yeah,
the
you can do that
sentiment
now.
on this. And like the fact that that is now, what it was 3 short years later, as now that's the reality. I'm like, that is brilliant, because the amount of knowledge that gets lost if you don't have that.
I'm finding like I can ask you questions to. I guess I don't know if anybody else uses like Google Workspace and like using the search.
No.
I don't know why it's really confusing. But if I ask Gemini for a doc about blank, 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 it's pulling up my doc from 4 years ago. I'm like, well, I can't search find this, but you can find it. It's great.
Google Drive search. I don't know what's going on
Gemini
over
search
there.
is
If
great.
if anyone from Google is listening, please fix it right now. It would be great. Make AI fix it. Okay, has your knowledge repository ever failed you? Can you tell me about this scenario and how did you fix it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it failed me in like 2 or 3 days ago. I have a very like big bolded letter prompt in my like claude.md file. It says like never actually post to Slack. It posted to Slack. And it posted like I had it draft something. It was written kind of like a robot, as robots write. And I just like get it to draft it, and then I like copy and paste into a Word doc and I fix it up, especially if it's something detailed. It just sent like the like as if I was writing my counselor, but it was like dressed to my boss. I was like delete, delete, delete. So anyway, it definitely failed. And then I asked it, "How did you do that?" And it said, "I don't know." Basically, I see your instructions not to do that, but I did it. So
Ghost in the system?
it was like, oh, that was step 1.4, and I skipped that, and I was like, why? So yes, definitely failed, but in a more like richness, it fails because it's like almost like there's too much context in there. If I ask a simple question, it actually doesn't know what to be pulling from the library. So it'll like splice in things like in my world refunds and disputes kind of have some similar overlap of like way things work, and it was inserting how disputes work, which is actually how refunds work, not how disputes work. And like an average person reading it would be like, those are facts, but I was like, that's absolutely wrong, and is not going to be helpful for anyone to read who's taking this as a requirement. So it fails.
Yeah. That actually kind of connects to a conversation you and I had before the talk, which is like, how much time do you spend maintaining your systems? Do you feel like there's an additional overhead to making sure that these are all working as they should?
I don't spend any time
Oh,
anymore.
that's great.
Probably spent half a day doing it once and then hating it and deleting it. And then then like the next time I just wrote a much better prompt. Like this whole knowledge management system, the one that I have, I just prompted it into existence. I didn't create file, didn't name anything. I just said, this is what my workflow needs to be. This is what I think would be helpful. And it created a plan. And I said, go. And then since then, I've added skills to it. I've gotten skills from other people that I think are useful. That's and great. Now, I mean, the big test in my book is going to be impact review season and how it helps me recall, like, for personal, like, growth and personal, like, attribution to my past 6 months, if it is really valuable, or should I have set it up better?
Maybe time will tell. I'm sure you will find a happy medium. Where does AI fit in your product, not just ops, but core user experience?
My personal product, where it comes in, is helping people contextualize where their money is. People want to know when they're getting paid out, and there's stupid stuff involved, like Visa, MasterCard settle based off UTC time. And if you're somebody from, well, not England, you're like, what is UTC time? And if the admin says, oh, it's 12 UTC, they go, what literally does that mean? So what we are able to do is it helps contextualize information to the merchant's like space. What time is it? What's the computer time? If you need to explain something in more detail, you can. The other example that was sort of up there, it's a team that's adjacent to me. It says, anyone ever like done a chargeback and said like, I didn't actually buy that?
Yes.
How many of you, raise your hand if you've done a chargeback. Raise your hand if, no, keep it up. Raise your hand if like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 days later, you went, oh shoot, that was actually me. I know people have done that because I see you every day. Anyways, so one of the great tools that happen is when you do that as a card holder, the merchant literally gets their money taken back from them, and it's effectively like a claim, like a you filed a claim that this merchant stole money from you.
And then, does that impact the merchant negatively?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
money gets like we have to suck.
But do they get like dinged in the system?
They get the money taken back, and then if they have too many of them, they can get shut off from Visa and Mastercard. So anyways, you do that, and then the response is supposed to be like the merchant could be like, hey, wait a second, they actually did buy it. Here's a picture of it at their doorstep. Here's like the receipt. Here's a conversation I had with them. Well, the thing is, banks care about you. They don't care about the merchant. So the bank's like, well, I really want to keep Anthony's business, so he's going to keep his chargeback, and the merchant, off you go. And part of the problem was people couldn't create good cases. Like literally, you'd be like a lawyer to write these like, hey, bank, actually they got their thing, they're lying to you, or they're confused, or whatever. Average merchant can't write that. And so now we're able to help them draft very tailored responses when they get a dispute with all the information we have, being like, here's a photo, here's like the going on UPS map landing there, so that they can act and show up much more like if you did dispute to Amazon, they probably have a team of 100 people fighting these disputes. If it's at a random number?
Yeah.
Oh, that merchant chooses what this sits there.
It's the merchant's
So-
fault. Good to know. This is fantastic.
Stay after, and we can talk about all the
Yeah,
more cases.
send a message to your merchant.
Yeah, no, that's bad. They should have their name or their phone number in that spot. But all this stuff is like boring gunk of
Yeah.
running a business. Like if you want to start your business tomorrow, would you realize you have to learn about chargebacks? No. And so when these things do arise, instead of being like, go read this like long support document, we can pull in the right information just the right time with our AI.
Amazing. I love this next question. We're hiring less juniors now than before at my company. Do you see the same at Shopify? What do you make of this shift in the short and long term?
Our PM hiring hasn't changed probably in the past 3 or 4 years. We've been exclusively basically through our junior, that is through our APM program, and that's still the same. So I haven't seen that. I can't say that doesn't exist. And from our engineering, same thing. We have the internship program. That's not how I joined the company. It was well before those programs existed. So I'm not personally seeing that. I can understand where that may come from, but there's more context than ever that needs managing as a product person. And I think we're still figuring out the shape of like the PM role and why we still need junior PMs in them. I think the question becomes for most, like, the PM craft is probably like 20 years old, 25 years old. Yeah. And it's evolved, just like accounting evolved, just like all these other professions evolved, but they've had more time. That how do you get in as a junior is, I think, becoming even more skeuomorphic than it was when I started about 10 years ago, which was, hey, you were fresh out of school, you had a little business degree, and you like solve problems, like go.
Or you just like accidentally fall ass backwards into a role like I did? Yeah.
Yeah, like they said to me, who wants to migrate billing credentials? And I said, I want to leave this company, so I'll join you and do that random job and call it a product manager. That's probably less now, and people are more moving laterally into it. At Shopify, how you get into product generally, if you're not in the APM program, is you're an expert in something. Like you know a lot about SEO and you want to make a tool to help our merchants on SEO, or you know a lot about world payments and you know how to like turn that into product requirements and how to solve problems with it. That's not to say it's smaller companies. The jack of all trades route is probably still more experience in media, but like still valuable.
Yeah. I mean, I think, early stage companies are still your best bet if you're looking to get into product roles. At FANG companies, again, like, we can now get degrees in product management, which did not exist when 15 years ago.
Probably would get an F.
I would do
funny?
100%. I would definitely. I honestly, I have a lot of mixed feelings about degrees in product management because product management is about problem solving and nimbleness and like having a lot of
No one's ever right.
No one's ever right.
Yeah.
And so the idea that you come out with a degree like that, you know how to find an answer is strange to me. But I think the FANG companies have actually solved for the junior talent problem already because they already needed to solve for that problem because of the size, their general needs, the fact like their attrition rates, et cetera. Like they need that treadmill of talent coming in and being groomed in their particular ecosystems where context is takes years to develop. Like you cannot really have an impact at that type of company unless you're coming in as a particular expert in something uh, in under 12 months. You just can't do it. And that speaks to my own experience at Spotify. I think the companies that are really going to fail in this are like the mid-sized companies that still actually don't do product particularly well. And there's a lot of companies that are still really wonky when it comes to how to approach product, being product led engineering. I think those are the ones at risk for one, getting AI workflow implementation wrong, and two, completely neglecting building their talent bench and figuring out how to hire and figuring out how to cultivate talent. Um, I actually love Shopify's application process, which is really, really focused on
I'm glad because I interview it frequently, so I'm glad you
Yeah.
like it.
No, I mean, I've never applied to Shopify. I don't think I do well at Shopify, to be honest, but I I was curious, and it's all about like what have you built and what have you created, what have you made, and to me that really speaks to the values of the company, and I think it comes across really well, and I think it attracts the type of person that you want at Shopify. So yeah, I really love the application there, and I love what they're really looking for. Um, yeah, okay, wait. I think we have time for one more question. We do. So I'm going to see if I can find a good one. Hmm, hmm, hmm. Okay, wait. Um, now I can't find a good one. You mentioned speed without context is dangerous. Can you share any specific consequences when you went too fast and something went wrong? And how did you mitigate? That's a good one.
Went too fast. Yeah. One place where I thought that I could move really quickly was help docs. Didn't think it's a little. They're always a little wrong. No. Uh,
They are
They
always a
are.
little wrong.
especially when you're the expert, you're like, ooh, I wouldn't say it like that. But there's. Anyways, I've moved too quickly in an overhaul of our help docs and completely buggered up geographic differences. That meant that when it got to, luckily a salesperson caught it and like was like, someone help, this doesn't make sense. But yes, shipping things to help docs was something that I left too much to Claude Code, that I really regret and was an early learning for me. It's like, wow, look how much it did for me so quickly.
Do you feel like help docs though is one of the areas where I'm so happy AI is here now?
Yes, and this is where we're learning. I'm seeing the teams that are responsible for these things go, really great that the PMs can just like ship changes to help docs. The help docs team needs to have tools that actually normalizes the language being used. The like and check to make sure that Keith's opinion of how something should be phrased isn't changing how it connects to the pagination of the information. All of that needs taste.
Yeah.
And my individual
Tone,
yeah,
style.
right. And my individual is not adequate.
Yeah.
And so the systems need to be continue to evolve. So like can't say the system should have caught my like factual mistake, but ideally it would have said, that's not what the code says. And actually you can read the code and go, oh, it doesn't say that. So why would we let that get shipped by silly Keith and his Claude Code friend into the help docs?
Has that evolved at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's now tools for when you ship a PR, as that it can to nudge if it means that there's a help doc that needs to be updated as a result.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Keith. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming, for your amazing questions. I got so much out of this evening. It was so fascinating. And I hope you come for our next conversation, which is going to be this in context of how you work with engineering. So see you in April. Thank you guys so much.